I'm so tempted to bust out into Ice Ice Baby. Do it. I'll try to contain myself. That's the name. I will just turn all these dials up. Well, I'm supposed to have an interrupter here, but it looks like it's me today, so I will introduce myself. My name is Amy Farrell, and I am a teacher in the communication department. I just started without you. This is Kyle. He's going to do an introduction. My name is
Hey everyone. Apparently I can't tell time, or that my watch is really slow. Yeah, it's pretty slow. My name is Kyle Stafford. I'm actually the communications officer for the Speak Out Communications Club here at Spokane Community College. It's my honor to introduce our next speaker, which we've had 3 taste rehearsals before. Amy is one of our amazing co-advisors for the Speak Out Communications Club, along with Melissa Salisbury. Not only that, she is a professor here at Spokane Community College. She has received her bachelor's degree in organizational communication from Eastern Washington University, graduated with honors, and she also has a master's degree from Mount Sega in leadership, also graduated with honors. Can everyone hear me? No. Is that better? Yes. All better. Okay. Much better. Even better. Okay. Amy has been a communication studies professor here at the college for 5 years, and she specializes in teaching gender communication, interpersonal communication, effective listening, conflict management, and business and professional communication. She also been a communication and business consultant for 12 years, doing workshops in team building, leadership, and business communication. So with that, can you please help me welcome her again.
Hello again. That was a great introduction. Thank you, Kyle. I'm so excited to be here. Lots of familiar faces out there. That's always fun. I am going to be talking about the difference between males and females, our brain difference, and how that impacts our ability to resolve conflicts and kind of communicate with each other. If you've got a chance to catch the keynote speaker, she's talking about some of the similarities between males and females, and there obviously are many similarities. We're going to touch on some of the differences, and hopefully it'll make sense of the process for some of us. If you are a female who has been misunderstood by a male in your life, can you raise your hand? Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. How about males? Are there any males out there that's like, these girls just do not understand me? A few. We only have several men in here, predominantly female. So we are going to be talking about some of the differences. Male brains and female brains are very different. This is kind of a cartoon example. The female is thinking brains, babies, talk, respect, shoes, security, and love. Those are kind of her main centers of her brain. On the male end, sex, beer, food, sex, TV, football, sex.
There's too many things in the male brain.
All right. We'll take a narrow down this So even our cartoon example of this is very clear that we're on different pages in our communication. So that's just kind of a generalized example. Want to let you know in here that obviously you're going to have different opinions, so just to speak respectfully of each other, and I will try to do the same. Also, these are some generalizations. Obviously not all men are the same and not all women are the same, so I'm just saying that up front. So we are going to start talking about the differences in the brain itself. So size does matter. We're going to say that the male brain is typically about 10% larger than the female brain. Any ideas why? Any questions on that? Any thoughts?
Ego.
Ego? Okay. And that comes from a male. That's interesting. I like it. Okay. Any other reasons?
Guys are just bigger in general.
Their bodies are bigger. it's not a difference in regards to, oh, you have a bigger brain, therefore you're more intelligent. A bigger brain supports a bigger body, so that's pretty self-explanatory. When we are looking at the differences between males and females, there's a few components that are different for the brain itself. So many men are sharply left brain dominant. And if you look at the, can't barely see it, I'll read it for you. The left brain on here in the picture example is saying logical, sequential, rational, analytical, objective, and you're looking at parts of things. So what we're talking about is that that's more male characteristics than female characteristics. But women tend to be more evenly balanced, and that may be, you know, just situational depending on where we're coming from, but they tend to be slightly more intuitive. The right brain has random, intuitive, holistic, synthesizing, subjective, looks at wholes. So it isn't that one brain side is right or wrong or better or worse, but the reality is that males tend to be, you know, more on that left brain side, and women have a more balanced perspective. So how do you think that that impacts our communication? If we're on two different planes, if the males are in one logical, analytical, thinking type area, and the females are more evenly balanced, how is that going to impact our communication with each other? If you're not in any of my classes, we just talk out loud. If you have an idea, just share.
Males tend to really overthink things.
Okay?
No, I got that so bad.
Okay, so maybe when in this example, maybe overthink things depending on the circumstance, because males are very logical.
Yes,
So the overthinking is I'm running through all of the ideas. I'm thinking about it in regards to what makes sense, rational thinking. Good. What else? Yeah.
Well, if you're using both half of your brain, you're probably running your function. You're probably running your thought patterns through more parts of your brain, so you're actually thinking more often and more frequently with different parts of your brain. So I'm assuming that there's more stuff going on, not because females are smarter, but because they have to, because that's the things that are working the most often.
Yeah, exactly. So we are in an environment where we have to be able to wear different hats. And so in this example, you know, we're talking about females being able to use both sides, and that's situational, which means that depending on the circumstance, we can pull out these strengths in ourselves. And it isn't that males don't have those as well. You know, we call on them for many of their strengths, but we are seeing that it is different, not necessarily better or worse, but different. Good. Dorsal premedullary what? Males have a larger dorsal premedullary nucleus in their brain, and that is a mouthful. This means that it's part of the brain that governs protecting its territory. So do you see that in males around you, that they're very protective of their territory? And that might be their home environment, that might be their family, that might be their friends. They have a natural instinct to protect. And women have it in a different capacity, and I would say there's kind of a mothering instinct, and it comes out a lot when we have children, that we feel a need to, you know, defend them, to fight for them, to protect them. But males have it in a larger extent, at least from my own experience. I don't come to work and I'm not concerned about being protected here. I don't even think about it really. But at home, when I've got children that I'm overseeing and taking care of, then it hits a whole new playing field for me. So that's definitely something that that's a difference between males and females. But it's good. You know what I mean? We can say, obviously, this is a difference. One brain has a section and the other brain is not as strong. But that's why we end up utilizing the skills and resources of the people around us. Because if it's not a strength for us, it might be a strength for somebody else. Excuse me. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Women have a larger mirror neuron system. This is the part of the brain that interprets emotional cues. So when you have a gal that you're interacting with and she's like, "You're not okay, are you? I can just tell." Or, "Why are you mad at me?" Or, you know, we're reading the nonverbal communication of others, and I think we just see it in ways that other, you know, that males don't see it in the same capacity. It's almost like a filter that we have, that we pick up on those cues. So, you know, in general, obviously we're using some generalizations. When you have a baby and a baby's crying, some of the natural instincts of the mother is to determine, why is the baby crying? Is the baby hungry? Is the baby need to go to the bathroom? Is the baby tired? You know, those are the things that we can read within the cry. And males can pick that up, especially if they're around the babies a lot, but in general, we have that first inclination because we can read the emotions of others. Nonverbal communication is 80% of our communication. So, you know, we think about how much women pick up, and we have, I think, just more communication than men do in general. There's research that shows that women use 20,000 words a day. That's a lot of words. We're talking. Yeah, seriously, right? Okay. Men use 7,000. So 20,000 to 7,000. I don't know what we're talking about all day. I don't know what, you know, where this is coming from, but the reality is that we, as females, that maybe it's we're using both sides of our brain, so we have lots more to say, but there's some differences in us that you can see just in our immediate environment. So we're looking at the brain and saying, okay, 20,000 words per day versus 7,000 words per day. There's something different there, and we can pick up on that in our relationships. And I think if nothing else, we have awareness about the differences, and then you can go on from there. So I would recommend taking gender communication if you haven't already. It's a fantastic class. This is just a brief, you know, like a little preview to the main topics that you're going to be covering in that class, but there's a lot of information that everybody needs to know about. Listening. This is something that women tend to do well. It's not that we care more, I mean, we're just designed that way, that we want to get all of the details of everything that happened, and more details than we ever needed to know. But because that's how we're designed for listening, when we have interactions with men and they have a different style, we sometimes misread things. So when men are making less eye contact when communicating, we see it as that they're not listening or fully engaged. On the other side of things, men are thinking, I can still hear what you're saying, even if I'm watching football. I got the NBA game on, I am all cued in to your conversation, you know, but in that circumstance, we don't feel listened to. We feel like if I was important to you, then you would shut off the TV and listen to me. Well, does that ever happen? No. And part of that is because we're different. We don't understand where the other sex is coming from. You know, we're not in their brains. We have no idea what's really going on in there. And oftentimes you say, okay, maybe I just say this, but have you ever caught yourself saying, can you repeat to me what I just said? Because I'm pretty sure you weren't listening. Anybody?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, how on earth can you be using the drill and the vacuum and, you know, 18 other things, but still catch everything that I'm trying to say to you? And my husband's amazing about it. He can reply everything that I said. And I'm thinking, that's genius. Why can I not do that? Like, I drive, talk on the phone, I can, you know, pick up some food in the back seat, multitasking, you know, but I'm going to miss parts. So that's, you know, one of the things that men have an easier time with is just handling all those different things at the same time. Women in conflict. Women are more likely to talk to other women when they have a problem or need to make a decision. We go to our girlfriends and we talk about you all the time. I'm just going to tell it to you straight. We're going to share all the details because for us to process it, we have to say it externally. We have to get feedback from other people, and generally it's other women. And my husband he cannot comprehend why I have to go talk to other people about it. He's like, it's private, why do you go talk? And I said, these are my friends. You know, they're here to support me. And they listen, and I need to talk about it. And I need advice, right? So, but males don't do that. They don't call up their BFF. Do we males have BFF?
They're bros.
Kind bromance. You call up your romance guy and you're like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what my wife just said. You don't do that. So it's different, and women are talking to relate. We find commonalities between ourselves when we're talking. You know, if we have something in common with somebody, it's so much easier for us to make that connection. We talk about it, and we talk about it, and we talk about it, and we talk about it. 20,000 words a day, right? So we gotta be talking a lot. But our purpose for communication is to build those relationships. My purpose, you know, my husband gets home, we've been married 10 years, I'm asking him about his day, and my point of doing that is to show him that I care about what happened for him, and that I'm interested in showing him that, you know, I too, you know, he's a teacher, I too am a teacher, and I have students, and so that communication piece is important. And when he gets home, I'm just talk. He's like, I just want to watch TV. To him, he needs to decompress, which means essentially, I'm going to let all the work stuff go. I just need to come to a man cave, or go work out, or, you know, whatever like gentlemen do to decompress. They just need some time to relax before they can have the barrage of questions that I, of course, ask. The details of, you know, what he had for lunch and all those things, he doesn't even think about that stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, so you got to work, and then you taught this and this and this, then you had lunch. Where'd you go to lunch? It's like, I don't remember. Oh, you don't remember? What? I don't understand. How could you not remember where you went to lunch? You know, those kinds of things were just very detail-oriented. Men in conflict. Men keep their problems to themselves and don't see the point in sharing personal issues. And I would ask, is it, do you feel like if you're talking to people about your problems that makes you look weak? Or any guys in here, what's your thought? Why don't you want to talk to your friends about your issues? Yes?
You don't see that it affects them. What happens inside of me, hey, I'll handle that.
Yeah.
And I have no point talking to you about it.
Absolutely.
Unless I think you know more than I do
Yeah.
about this.
What are you going to do about it? If I've got a problem with one of, you know, my wife, then I go tell my best friend, what's he going to do about it? He's not going to fix the problem. So you talk to the people that can fix something for you. Yes?
Pride.
Pride. Yeah, that's very honest. Yeah. We don't want to look like we've got issues. We want everyone to think that we are A-okay. And I don't know if women just don't care, or because everyone's got problems, we can just relate to it and share it, and you know, that changes it for us. What were you going to say?
And it's also generational as well. I think
Okay.
men as a whole have changed. And like a lot of the men that I interact with on a regular basis, we do talk about a lot of things like that. So I think maybe it is changing.
Yeah.
The stereotype isn't as strong as it used to be.
Yeah, and there's definitely, I would say that technology is changing that quite a bit as well. There's emotional pieces that when you're struggling, you don't necessarily want to say it face to face, but if you can text somebody, it takes some of that emotion, some of that fear away of sharing what's going on for you. And I see people doing that way more frequently now than they used to. Obviously, they didn't have texting back then. But because you're kind of a step away from the communication itself, then maybe it's not so threatening. Good. Okay. Men talk to resolve. This is fixing problems. This is, you know, I think, and my husband, I'm sure he would love being the example of all these, but, you know, like, he's going to build something. He needs someone to help him. So he talks to somebody, oh, come help me, I'll help you. And it becomes this network of people that can help you fix your problems. Oh, my electricity isn't working. I'm going to call on my friend who's an electrician, or my plumbing's being wonky, and so I'm going to call that guy. And that's kind of the resolving the problems of some of the communication that happens. And as women, as we're sharing our problems, we oftentimes get the communication back as a way to solve the problem. But the only problem is that we're not always wanting to talk about it for a solution. Sometimes we just want to talk about it. And so for me, what I've ended up having to say is, in the beginning of the conversation, saying, I just need to vent right now. I don't need a solution, I'll figure it out, I just need to talk to you about what's going on for me. And they seem to handle that. And even, you know, if there's friends, sometimes they have more masculine communication. They want to solve your problems too, give you advice. Oh, when that happened to me, this is what I did. You know, sometimes you have to just preface your conversation by saying, you know, I'm just needing to vent, or I'm just needing to process, or I'm looking for advice. Can you help me? And then that clear communication helps to keep us so we're all on the same page. If women have a disagreement with each other, it affects all aspects of their relationship. Any women out there that can relate to that? If you've got an issue with one of your girlfriends, you're thinking about it, you're stewing about it, you're trying to figure out, you know, you've got to figure out before you see them the next time, because how are you going to see them face to face when you solve this problem? We have this need to resolve things because it weighs on us, versus males tend to have a disagreement. They can move on to another subject and can go get a drink together. You know, it's like, oh, no biggie, we're good, let's go have a beer. And I wish I was like that. I so wish I could turn that button off inside of me and just be like, oh, it's good, let's just go get a Cosmopolitan and we'll be, you know. But unfortunately, my brain's not designed like that. But opposites do attract. We as females are more in touch with our feelings. That's something that, you know, we spend a lot of time being affected by situations and circumstances, and you know, we're more feeling oriented. Oftentimes we're better at expressing emotions because it's important to us. We want people to know how we're feeling. We want to have empathy for what it is that we're going through. We want to have commonality. We want to know that someone else, you know, has been through the same thing or feels the same way. It kind of gives us validation. They are better at connecting with others. And I think this is a generalization, but when we're talking about female communication, we're doing it to build relationships. So that's what it's talking about. On the other end of things, we have males think logically and make decisions that are not based on feelings. Is there times in your life where you have to make a decision and just go by what seems like the right choice and you're not going for your gut instinct? Anybody, it's like, I'm just going to weigh out the pros and cons and I'm just going to make a decision. Yeah? Men focus on the gist as opposed to focusing on the details. Oh, we talk so much, I have no idea how they can decipher what's the important. We need like a thesis statement for our conversations. Like, okay, I'm going to talk about this, this, and this. Then I'm going to review what we talked about and give you this 5-paragraph outline for what it is that we're going to be talking about for the next 20 minutes. And my husband's like, why didn't you just say that you had a bad day? Why do I have to hear all of the why and the who and the where? You know, he doesn't need those details. Doesn't care about those details. And me sharing that, he's like, doesn't matter. Really, I mean, you got to get to the gist of it and say, okay, well, I had a bad day. This is what I need from you in order to make me feel better. Versus, I'm going to tell you a 20-minute story, and I think after about 2 minutes, he's just done. He's like, just if you do the thesis at the beginning, then you can skip all the details. And I don't understand that. I'm like, don't you want to hear about where I went to lunch? But I think in this too that we have some stereotypes about males and females. And the stereotypes that we have impact the next generation by how we are feeding into that. And obviously the keynote speaker was talking about the media and how that plays a part of this. But also just exposure to different genders is something that we're giving the younger generation, we're giving our children our ideas about how it should go. So as an example that she was using is saying, you know, her father did all of the cooking, and you know, that was how I grew up. My father did all the cooking. And so then when I got married, I was like, hey, what are you making for dinner? And he's like, no, what are you making for dinner? And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you don't do all the cooking. So who's going to do the cooking? I'm doing the cooking. I had to learn how to do it because, you know, that was where we ended up in our conversations. We grew up in different environments, so we had different experiences, different ideas about how it was going to go. And that's okay. It's okay to not agree on it, right? We don't have to agree on everything. We can agree to disagree. We can compromise. We can come up with solutions. You know, like I'll cook dinner Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You bring home dinner Tuesday, Thursday because I know you're not cooking. Or I cook dinner Tuesday, Thursday. We eat cereal Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You know, toast. I mean, people can survive on toast, right? I mean, I'm sure starving children in the whole entire world would love toast, so I should not be so picky. One of the things that I realized in communication between males and females that I think if I was going to teach you one thing to take away, this might be it. When women think about, okay, let me back up. Males and females have different memories. So, women, we have an entire trunk full of our whole life. When we are reminded of something that has happened to us, or we're thinking about something that's happening to us, we open the trunk up and everything from our entire life is exposed to us. So, if my husband says, oh, I don't know if I like that outfit on you, which, that's a viable point, okay. But I'm going to open my trunk up and I'm like, well, my dad didn't like my outfit when I was in 6th grade, and my first boyfriend didn't like my outfit when I was in 9th grade. You know what I mean? We're going back into our entire history. And he's like, I don't care about what, you know, I mean, not to be rude, but he's like, this doesn't impact me. I'm talking about today. So the difficulty in communication and conflict resolution between us is that when we have a conflict, we're bringing up everything that's ever happened. We're taking into account, you know, the circumstance that happened to one of our friends even. Oh, when Susie had her husband, this and this and this. You know, that comes all to our mind because it's just a floodgate. We're just opening up the dam, and everything experience that we've been through all comes rushing out. Males, on the other hand, they have compartments. When they're reflecting on something or they're thinking back to something, they pull out this little drawer and there's this little experience, and that's what they refer to, and none of the other compartments open up. There's something genius about that. I so wish I could do that, right? Like, I don't want to remember anything from, you know, I mean, high school, I think I'd rather forget. So let's just start at like 20. I don't want to remember anything from 20 before. We'll start remembering at 20 after. Definitely made better choices then. So if I could compartmentalize and say, okay, well, you don't like my outfit. Oh, that's okay. I'll pick something else. I don't have to bring up, you know, the 18 other outfits that you didn't like. You told me you didn't like this. I mean, okay, I'll just tell you. We had an instance. We went on a date. We went to Wolf Lodge in Coeur d'Alene. And I don't even know how it came out, but he did not like what I was wearing. I'm sure I probably twisted it and turned it and made it bigger deal than it was. But regardless, okay, so years later, it's our 10-year anniversary. We're going to Wolf Lodge in Coeur d'Alene, and I say, remember the last time we were here, you said you didn't like my outfit, and then I was all mad. I almost ruined my entire anniversary dinner because I was reflecting on the 7 years earlier that he didn't like my outfit. Isn't that crazy? I so wish I could turn that off. But compartmentalizing, okay, so maybe you have a problem at work. Your work goes in one drawer. And when you're at home, you don't open your work drawer, you open your home drawer. Well, when I have a problem at work, I go home and I'm talking about the work problem, I'm talking about the home problem. You know what I mean? I'm going over everything that's in my trunk. And is that helpful? I don't think so. I don't think I need to think about the 7 years before. You know, I mean, there's good learning lessons. And I think he learned not to say that he didn't like my outfit, because look at him still bringing it up 7 years later. He's like, I'm a smart guy, let's stop doing that. Why can't we just get along? In general, stereotypes are women are too sensitive. And in general, stereotypes, men are not sensitive enough. Right? And maybe it's that like protective instinct. I've got to, you know, put my big man pants on, and we're like, I don't want to wear pants, I can't find ones that fit, and I gotta lay down to zip it up. And seriously, these are the main stereotypes that we have about males and females, and there's validity to it to a certain extent, but we're cutting things short. I want to show you a little video clip here, if I can make this happen. This is from the movie Fireproof, so I'll just give you a quick summary of the movie. There's a married couple and they're having some relationship problems. So they're in the process of separating, but they're both living in the same house, and so this is kind of the initial conversation. That's hard to see. Can you even see it in the back? I don't even know. I'm just going to flip the switch.
Push the red button.
Red? Whoa! No, that's up and down. Red button where?
I was joking.
Oh. Push the red button. I'll push it. Set off a fire alarm. I have no idea. All right. Well,
Which is here.
oh, okay.
I was not doing anything.
That's
That's okay. No biggie. Well, you'll get the idea when you hear it. So anyway, so this is them processing the situation from their different perspectives.
Honey, I agree with you. You gotta get out. He don't deserve you.
You can say that again. A real man's gotta be a hero to his wife before he can be to anybody else. He ain't a real man.
Catherine, you need a place to stay. I can't imagine living in the same house with that man.
No, I decided last night that I'm not the one that's leaving. He's the problem, not me.
That's right, girl. Stand your ground. Make him respect you. If there's one thing a man understands,
it's respect. That's the issue. That's the reason our marriage is failing. She shows me no respect at all. And the saddest part about it is,
He doesn't have a clue. He thinks our marriage has been fine for the most part. You know, he probably thinks...
our marriage has been fine until this year. Now all of a sudden she goes off the deep end.
Do you really think this happened all of a sudden?
I don't know what to think. I don't understand her. She's emotional about everything. She's easily offended and way too sensitive.
I mean, he's so insensitive. He doesn't truly care how I feel. He doesn't listen to me. Even if I say it over and over and over again.
And then she starts nagging me and saying I don't listen to her or something like that. It drives me crazy. I feel like I'm going
Insane. You know, he doesn't understand my needs. I feel like we are completely and totally
incompatible. She's probably whining to her friends, making me sound like a criminal. I can see them all right now crying, having some sort of group hug.
it's gonna be okay.
So you think it's past the point of no return?
I don't have a reason to return.
So you kind of get the idea that, oh, right.
That's an A!
You get the idea that the stereotypes that we have, you know, are definitely based on some real experiences. I know, you know, I don't think that's far off when we're talking about what goes on, you know, at least from my perspective. When I'm having an issue and I go talk to my girlfriends and, you know, okay, maybe we cry, maybe the group hug, but, oh Christ. But we are, if we go back to the stereotypes, then, you know, we can see where they're coming from. But obviously, especially in the media, it's definitely portrayed to the extreme. So I appreciated that where it kind of went back and forth and you get to kind of see from different perspectives. But I know that for the sensitivity piece, there's a reason why we're sensitive. There, you know, we take it back to the brain. We're using both sides of our brain in our communication, so we're tying into some of those neurons and stuff that are predisposed to being sensitive, and we need that. We're taking care. There's a nurturing component. You know, those are skills that we rely on in order to do the things that we need to do. And the same for males is that in most of the jobs and all of that males are in, they couldn't be emotional and too sensitive because of the fact that they would either be not taken seriously or their job depends on it. So military, that's obviously one of the things that that is impacted gender. Of they didn't want women to be in combat because of their sensitivity and their emotions. That how would they feel if they were seeing somebody that had been killed, or how would they handle this if push comes to shove. And so people are breaking the stereotypes now. And in the previous lesson over there, Roger Bragdon's from the Spokane Police Department, he was talking about that, about how the female had to evolve into being able to do the job in the same way, but ultimately they were very capable of doing it, and they have a different approach. His example was talking about when they respond to a domestic violence situation, that the males will go and they get the gist of the story and then they bring someone to jail. Well, the female might stay there longer and get more information, and part of their compassion and empathy plays into the fact that they can get more information, more facts, more feelings of what's really going on. And that's important before you're going to take someone to jail. Don't you think that's good to get all the information, as opposed to you've got 1 minute worth of information and you've made a decision. But I think there's just that floodgate that happens to us. So we're going to talk about a few different tips for communicating with men, and I'd be interested to hearing the male perspective on this. This is based on research, obviously my own experience. So I would say, instead of giving men the entire story or all of the information, give them the gist. We had a good day. It was a great day. That's all you need. And if you have, I would say, okay, males in here, if you want more information, you're fully capable of asking for more information. Well, what did you do today? You know what I mean? You can ask those questions versus we're going to tell you everything that you ever wanted to know and didn't want to know about our day. The feelings, the emotions, the details. I had these 3 classes and this is what happened in each class. I think he stops listening after the first 5 minutes. And I would too, really, if I had to hear myself. Let men decompress before having a serious conversation. How do you decompress, guys? Work out. That's a big thing. The exercise component is huge, I think, for males. The endorphins that you get from it, stress relief, also the feelings of being stronger and being able to protect, those are all components of working out. Yeah? Say it one more time. Oh, I got 2 people. Go ahead.
No, I would just want, the question isn't quite related to this, but the neurons in a male's brain has got to be made out of the same kind of stuff as in a female's brain.
There are components that are the same in some areas, like we said in the beginning, some areas are bigger in males than they are in females, and vice versa. So you're having the same, we're all made of the same thing, but it's just used differently.
And then the difference is how that thing is used over time and developed through time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then becomes habitual in the way you're raised and all the rest of that stuff.
Yeah. Do you think that, males, you are doing it similar to how you saw it growing up? Was your dad an exerciser? If you're an exerciser. Exerciser, is that even a word? One who exercises. Yeah, but you learn that, and I think my husband and my 18-year-old, they work out together, and that's kind of how they're bonding, and I just try not to work out. I just don't think it's a good fit for me. I mean,
I didn't mean to get you off what you were talking about.
No, you're fine.
Tell when you're pointing to me, I was gonna.
Yeah, so who else has an idea about decompressing?
Well, and for as far as exercising, that's also a stress coping mechanism for as far as being able to vent that aggressive, the anger and all that stuff. Being able to do that in a violent manner.
Yeah.
So that way we're not taking that out on our spouses or partners.
That's a great point. Yeah, my husband spends all day with 5th graders. Can you imagine? To come home and like all the people that weren't doing what they're supposed to do, and somebody's bullying, and somebody, I don't even want to know all the things that go on there. There's a reason I don't teach elementary school, but the exercise piece is definitely a stress relief because he can't yell at them, he can't yell at me, so when he's angry, what's he going to do? He's going to go hit something, shoot something, he's going to, what else? In the back?
Let me jump in the door, sit down, have a beer, relax.
Yes.
Don't get in the face with it as soon as I'm
Right, absolutely. It's not like, hey, honey, welcome home. Now I'm going to tell you everything that I did today. You just want to relax a little bit first. Yes.
Oh, I was going to say activities where they don't have to think and they don't have to communicate.
Absolutely.
Anything that you can do that you don't have to think of.
Yeah, music, TV, sports, working out. What else? Driving.
My husband spends immense amounts of time in the garage cleaning the garage, which is never clean ever.
Yeah.
But he's always like organizing it. I think it's just cathartic. It's not the thing.
Yeah, yard work. My husband's a big yard work guy. I don't notice the difference after an hour of raking, but apparently it's a very big deal. And I just need to say thank you very much. And not say, I don't understand why you're doing this, because it's not the right thing to say. Good, okay, so, any other tips that you can think of, men, that you're like, you just need to make sure everyone knows this before they leave here today? Okay. Tips for communicating with women. Put aside distractions when you're talking to the woman. For all of you gentlemen, I just want to share with you one of the biggest things that does impact my marriage is the book, The 5 Love Languages. The 5 Love Languages is talking about ways that people feel loved and ways that people show love. And so there's different ones of, physical touch, quality time, gifts, words of affirmation, those kinds of things. So when we're talking about quality time, there's a difference between we're sitting in the car together, I'm driving, you're sitting there, that's quality time, that's not quality time for us. And you think you're, spending all this time with us, and I'm like, it's not quality time if you're watching TV. What I want, and I don't even need a whole lot of it, but my love language is quality time. I want you to look at me. I want your eyes to be on my eyes. I want you to ask questions and listen and follow up on what I'm saying, validate my feelings, obviously. But it's a huge thing for me, even if I had 10 minutes a day of just one-on-one talking, there's no distractions. We sometimes have to lock ourselves in the bedroom because we have 5 children. Quality time is hard to come by, and you know what? All their love languages is quality time. You gotta spend time with everybody. Everyone needs to feel validated, but that's how they feel loved. So is that important? Absolutely. If we want them to show us love the way that we want love, right? So I'm not words of affirmation. My mother is words of affirmation, and she affirms me vocally all the time. And it's nice, it's fine, whatever, but that doesn't mean anything. We go out to lunch and we have an hour together, I'm like, thank you. It's just different. So you want to make sure you figure out what yours is and what your significant others is, or your friends. They have the book for children. So finding out what your children's love language is, it makes a big difference in people feeling fulfilled and loved in their relationship. But we oftentimes show it in ways that we feel it, but we have to figure out what the other person feels. So, putting aside distractions when you're talking to a female. Keep an eye on your nonverbal communication. So we talked about the mirror neurons where we're picking up on your nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is like the tone, your facial expressions, you know, how you're standing, your posture, whether your arms are crossed. Those are all the different components of how we communicate non-verbally. So women are very in tune to that. So an example, my husband is 6 feet 4 inches tall, and I'm 5'6" on a good day in the morning. I stretch out really tall, maybe my hair gets a little big then. So he's almost a foot taller than I am. So if I'm in a conflict with him and he's standing a foot taller than I am, I might feel intimidated. If he sits down and I sit down, we're way more on eye level, and that makes a big difference for me in resolving the conflict because I don't feel intimidated. Another thing of the volume of something. There's not a need, if somebody doesn't understand, you don't need to raise your voice in order for them to hear it better, you just need to explain it differently. But that's a big thing. It's like, why are you yelling at me? It's like, I'm not yelling. But to me, it's the volume is raised to make the point. So those are nonverbal communication components. Gals out there, what are your nonverbal frustrations from your males and coworkers, teachers, friends, significant others? Anybody sigh when you ask them to do something? Honey, could you please take out the garbage? I am trying to raise my sons to do things, you know, without the sigh or the eye rolling. You probably see it in your kids too, right? The eye rolling. I don't know where anybody came up with that, but it needs to be banished. I get my yes, mom. That's just all I want to hear. I just want to hear yes, mom. I don't want to hear why must I treat my sister with respect. She's 5, you're 11. You're playing basketball together, so you're not exactly on the same playing field. You might want to tone it down just a smidge. So nonverbal communication is definitely a component of this figuring out the whole gender piece. So I want to focus briefly before we leave. We're almost done with time here. Is that men and women see the differences, and it feels like one is right, one is wrong, but we have to look at it as complementing features. We want to appreciate how the qualities that they have that are benefits to us. You know, taking if their natural instinct is to protect and have their own territory, I'm great with that. I want to pull that out and get as much protection and that as I can, because that makes me feel safe. And as we saw in the first slide, the cartoon one, security is a big deal for us. So we can highlight that and give them praise for being territorial. I'm great to be someone's territory. Benefiting, you know, if males are looking at females and saying, well, you know, you're too sensitive, but it's highlighting when is sensitivity appropriate. You know, if somebody's having a problem and you can have empathy for them, you look at those strengths, even though it's not the same in males and females necessarily, but you're looking at it and having benefit for it. You're seeing the good pieces of that. What does this mean for our relationships? We can complement each other. I would say my husband and I are almost complete opposites. How we've made it 10 years, I have no idea. Other than the fact that we look at each other's strengths and weaknesses, and by design, we're different, but we can utilize the strengths of others, and those are our weaknesses. So my husband's an extrovert, and he'll talk to everybody. He waves at every car that drives by. I have no idea. I'm an introvert. So when we're in a setting, he pulls out the introvert into conversation, and I can pull back, I can rein in that extrovert and let someone else speak in the room, right? So we can have differences that can complement each other. The differences enable couples to work together. If we're putting together a swing set, and I'm a detail person, so I'm going to read the directions, and he wants to do the handiwork, which we can do it together in a way more effective way. If he tried to read the instruction sheet, we would never build it. It would never happen, because they never look right. You know, the instructions are always unclear, all that, but female brains can interpret it, we can make sense of it, and so we can be a benefit. We'll read the directions, you do the hammering, because I'm pretty sure I don't have very good hand-eye coordination. I would hit myself with the hammer, I'm almost positive. So again, we can take the differences, the brains are different. It affects us not only in our interpersonal relationships with people, but how we manage conflicts with people. But what can we do? We can take those differences and find appreciation for the differences, utilize the strengths of one person in working together. And if we are looking at the positive as opposed to the negative, it will improve our relationships. If we're focusing on the things that somebody's doing right, the things that are helpful to us, the characteristics that we view as positive, then we're not keeping this laundry list in our trunk of everything that's ever happened wrong. So I hope you learned something new today, and I encourage you to take communication classes. Gender is going to be offered. I'm teaching it in the fall, so if you would like to learn more about it, come see me then. Thank you.